And a warm welcome, Pop, and thanking you for downloading our Podsquiffle onto your Computopter or Mobley Wobbly. We be the Bigger Boat Podsquiffle, where we be watching every film floopin' that Mr. Steven Swissburp has ever made. Obviously, today's Epiflub be talking all about Schindler's List.
Oh gosh.
Only kidding. I be talking flippy whippantly, and this be our BFG episode. I'll stop now, shall I?
Please.
I'm Luke. I regret that hugely. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Joey Dawson. And we've taken a day trip up to Southeast London today to podcast with a special guest. It's my sister. No, not that one. The other one.
Sorry to disappoint.
This is Clara Statham. Hello.
Hello.
You have not disappointed so far. Your face was an absolute picture during that intro.
As you were just hugely disappointed with your brother's choices.
Yep. No, I thought it was great, actually.
Good. I'm glad. I really don't know how that's going to translate at all. Never mind. How are you, Clara?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good, fantastic. So I should probably give a little bit of background. So Clara, not only being my sister, but both my sisters sort of work in the film and TV / behind the scenes industry, and you're a producer, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. I think a lot of the listeners won't know the difference between a producer and a director. So do you want to just explain a little bit about what those roles are?
Okay, well, a director has a more,
just say
artistical side of things. He has a vision that he wants to
Or she.
Very true. He or she wants to produce.
Yeah.
The producer deals with the money and that kind of side, finding funding, making it happen, organising it all, and being responsible for that.
So they get stuff done, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have a team as well that works with them to get stuff done.
Okay.
And within the parameters that have been given to them.
Sure. Oh, curious. Maybe Joey, you know this. Like, with that Kathy Kennedy and Frank Marshall, the people who have produced most of Spielberg's movies.
Yeah.
Do they actually have like an actual active producer role, or are they just more figureheads now, just because they're so high up in? It's
difficult to know unless you're there, like exactly how hands-on they are. Yeah. I think they are.
Yeah.
There's a sort of tendency with people who are megally successful, bashing out a film sort of every year, like Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall and Steven Spielberg, to think, oh, they're probably hands-off. They're not. I think they really are genuinely still hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's a little bit like, depending on like the size of the production, it would make sense that you would, it would make sense that the bigger production you would delegate.
You
more.
Have to, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how far removed from that. Because if you literally delegate everything, then your job is not much. But I don't get the impression that all three of those are like that. I think they are quite hands-on.
Yeah. What's the sort of biggest project that you've worked on in sort of getting stuff done as a producer?
Oh, as a producer?
Actually, maybe not as a producer, but generally in your...
Well, as a producer, I mainly do commercials.
Yeah.
So it's a bit different from the film world. But I have done a film before as like a production assistant. So I was just a small... wheel in a very big machine.
Mm-hmm. Which one was that?
It was Resistance.
Resistance?
Yeah, with Eowyn Ruin and...
Sorry, what? With
Eowyn Ruin. He played the guy in Game of Thrones and Misfits.
Yeah, I know.
He was...
Okay. Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah, Ramsay Bolton, exactly.
That's right. Yeah, okay.
And then...
Hasn't got Daniel Craig in it, has it? No,
there's one like that called...
with a bunch of like Jewish people
in
World War
woods.
II. And they go into the woods on a big sort of hunting mission.
Okay.
Yes, but it was... I can't remember what it was called, but it was something very similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could have been called The Resistance. I'm not sure.
Fair enough, yeah.
But yes, as a producer, TV commercials.
Your claim to fame, though, is... Didn't you tell me that you were... Because when you were a runner on Sherlock, weren't you?
Oh, I was a runner on Sherlock.
And you think that... Because that was run by Stephen Moffat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who then did Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And you think the Doctor Who's assistant Clara
Oh no.
is named after you?
Must be. I mean, why would they come up with a name like Clara? It's so unusual. But he did meet me.
Just before he was writing
Absolutely. And he
that
thought,
season of Doctor
and
Who.
I think we're quite similar as people. He wrote me into Doctor
Well,
Who,
you've got
basically.
brown hair. The other question we ask all our guests is, so for like me and Joey, we've talked about like our first Spielbergy moment. Like Joey, you saw Hook at the cinema, didn't you?
Yes.
But for me, it would probably be Jurassic Park. You're a couple of years younger than me. What was the sort of first awareness that you had of Steven Spielberg? Because you ended up doing a very filmy job. You did a film degree as well.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but Jurassic Park.
Yes, no, you can say the same thing.
Okay, can I?
Yeah, of course you can.
Because we grew up in the same household, so.
Did we? Yes, but you were locked away.
And you were
in
adopted.
The attic.
He wasn't.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately not. But
I was trying to be adopted. They tried to give me away.
I would say that was probably the first. And also, Dad loved Indiana Jones.
That's true.
So that was always a big thing.
Yeah. If you want to know how much you loved Indiana Jones, listen to our Indiana Jones episodes.
Yeah,
where
he watched that movie twice in 24 hours.
Yeah, because he didn't understand the format. So, like I said, today we are talking about a Spielberg film, and it charts the story of an East Coast hip-hop rapper cut down in his prime after a drive-by shooting.
No. That's the Notorious B.I.G.
Oh, sorry. It's about a British public service broadcasting.
No. That's the BBC.
Okay. So a sandwich.
No, that's a BLT.
Right. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. I'll get this. It is a Roald Dahl adaptation called the BFG.
That's the one.
Got it. Excellent.
You guys are such nerds.
I don't know what you mean. When we said we were going to do the BFG, because obviously, Clara, we wanted you to be a guest on this show as well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that now the whole family, apart from Mum, have been on it. You specifically chose to do the BFG.
I did.
Why?
I think it's so different from anything he's done.
Okay. Interesting. Did you watch it when it came out?
I did.
Okay, at the cinema or...
Not at the cinema.
Not at the cinema.
I saw it as soon as it came. I wanted to see it at the cinema, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. Due to various reasons.
Due to factors. Okay.
Yes. But as soon as it came out, I did see it.
Okay.
I was quite interested to see how Spielberg tackled something like this. Was like how he achieved the sense of scale with the kid and the giant. Mm-hmm. It was just from a technical perspective, it was quite a spectacle.
Okay.
I thought.
Because I've not seen this. Have you seen it, Joey, before?
Yes. I had watched the first half of it.
Okay.
And basically, what happened was, I was on holiday in Scotland.
Yeah.
And we got a flat tyre because it had been raining, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's that one day in the year where it just rains in Scotland. My luck. So I was going down the road, and underneath this puddle was this massive pothole, and it burst the tyre.
Okay.
Like a balloon.
Yeah.
So then we were not very far from the place where we were staying, so we drove in first gear there. Mm-hmm. And like, well, we don't know how long it's going to be till the breakdown people come.
Yeah.
So we watched the first sort of 20 minutes, and I think because we were sort of like on edge about like wanting to get like the car back and running and stuff, it was very much like, I can't really get into this.
Yeah,
so
sure.
We actually stopped. About 40 minutes in.
Fine.
And I remember not.
Was this on like a phone or your hotel room or?
Yeah, so we watched it on like a Kindle.
Okay,
so
sure.
like not quite even big enough, not even like a proper iPad or anything.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong headspace, my friend.
Exactly, wrong headspace. And so having mentally remembered this, like, I remember this is a difficult one to get into.
Yeah.
I have to admit, this is not like my most keen film that I want to revisit.
Yeah, no, sure.
At the moment,
yeah,
might change.
Okay, fair enough.
So you haven't seen this before?
No.
Do you have high expectations?
I don't know. It's not something that you hear people go on about quite a lot. It's one of those movies that happened and then passed.
Yeah.
And hasn't been really talked about ever since.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So it's I don't know if it will really stand the test of time. And also, it's probably one of those films that needs to cue into a lot of nostalgia about people's childhoods of reading Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
Or then bring the 1989...
Yeah, it's probably aimed more at people our age who can remember the original cartoon.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other sort of... I mean, I think I'm not saying like Roald Dahl's been replaced by Harry Potter and stuff, but Roald Dahl was the bee's knees of kids' books when we were young. We didn't have Harry Potter and stuff till later in school.
True. But I've never read the BFG at all.
What?
So I do not know this story.
What?
Really?
No, don't know it.
Never had it read to you?
Never had it read to me. No.
Did you ever read any Roald Dahl?
Or did our parents read it to you?
No, I read it myself.
You read it yourself? No, I only be read things. I've never learned to read. Why bother?
I have to say, out
missed out.
the whole lot, the BFG is not my favourite Roald Dahl book either, which might key into this whole sort of I'm not that fussed about seeing this film again.
Yeah,
I love Fantastic Mr. Fox, and George Mason is brilliant.
Yeah.
There is rumour that might be turned into a movie sometime soon.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Would it be like Matilda your favourite Roald Dahl adaptation then?
I would say yes.
Okay, fine. As in like film, not book.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. I do love Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh yeah, but you would though, wouldn't you?
That's quite far removed from the book though.
I know, but I love it.
It's not particularly very Roald Dahl-ish.
No, it's very Wes Anderson-y.
Yeah. So have you seen the original? We haven't mentioned it yet. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
The original, it terrified me as a kid.
The original musical version.
The original, what with Gene Wilder?
Yeah, with the Gene Wilder one.
Yes, yeah. I that was one of the films that absolutely terrified me as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Because the German gets caught in the pipe.
That was it. Augustus Gloop.
But they all get killed off eventually, don't they?
But they're children and they get killed.
Yeah, but you don't know if they actually get killed, do you?
They get eliminated.
It's just implied. It's just implied.
It's still the implication to a small child. That was absolutely terrifying and it horrified. I didn't realise they were allowed to do that. I was like, how did they film it? How did they allow it? Those I didn't. I was I was a very wimpy kid. I didn't deal with the dark elements of children's stories that well.
Apparently,
I couldn't watch people get gunged. And with that,
live and kicking.
No. With that, I'm talking like Noel's house party.
Oh yeah, that's
couldn't
great.
watch that. What? And then seeing Augustus Gloop essentially go into the chocolate, which is like the gunge, and then get sucked up that machine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Violet.
I genuinely had nightmares about that.
Violet, she sort of gets so big, she pops.
She pops.
Or something.
Yeah, that one was the most. That was the most horrific.
Is that Violet? Yeah, Violet Beauregard.
You're terrible. Yeah, Violet.
But she deserved it.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, isn't it? They all deserved it.
Yeah.
And Veruca Salt.
Maybe it's
I thought Augustus Gloop had a problem.
Yeah. It's true. It wasn't his fault.
It wasn't
it's the
his
parents
fault.
that really should be
absolutely
the ones that get killed.
That's true. Mike TV, I thought he got a bit of a hard time. I thought he was quite cool. Cool little dude.
Maybe it is a good because it did have such an impact on me, that film, that maybe it did make me be a good little kid because I was terrified of dying if I did anything wrong. So it's a good one to show.
So apparently Roald Dahl didn't really like that version because he said it was too nice, too clean cut, if you like.
Really?
Yeah. So I remember hearing that when Tim Burton made his version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I was like, something clicked in my head, like, chances are Tim Burton would probably make a film much closer to what Roald Dahl would have liked, because he likes a sort of dark and twisted, inexplicable...
However, I would argue that it's been a while since I saw the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. With the Tim Burton one, there is a scene where you see all the kids that have been eliminated, as you say, safely walk out of the... However, they walk out, like Violet Beauregard, who's a blueberry, is now like all stretchy, so she sort of cartwheels out and she's all floppy. Yeah. And Mike TV's like really small in a TV, isn't he? Or
yeah.
So you see them leave, and you see them leave safely. And I don't remember seeing that in the original, but I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So well, I'm glad he did that.
Exactly. So actually, it's probably even nicer.
Yeah.
Or less dark than the original, because.
All's well that ends well. There you go.
Yeah. I did work on that one as well. Well, I just did a bit of work experience.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did that. I was on the second unit just as a runner.
Oh, very good.
For like a week, doing all the Oompa Loompa scenes.
Oh, with Deep Roy.
Yeah, with Deep Roy.
Did you meet Deep Roy?
Yeah, I met Deep Roy. Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah, very good.
But yes, it was all the green screen, all the like singing bits with the Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
They had the most catchy songs. So you go home just singing them.
Yeah. Did you have to get Deep Roy his flat whites then, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. What was Deep Boy's most?
It was a very long time ago. I was like 14 years old.
Okay.
But I don't. Yeah, he was a very nice man.
What's the most unreasonable demand you've been made as a runner?
Oh, I don't know, Luke. That's a very difficult question.
Okay, there's not one particular moment.
No.
Okay,
no,
fine. No, fine. Never mind.
I've never worked with anyone super difficult.
I did hear a story about a runner who got called into one of the executive's office and was asked to stand in a corner somewhere, and then he slowly, he was standing there for about 15 minutes or so, and then was asked to move slightly to his left, and he stood there for a whole hour until he realised he was blocking the sun for the executive while they were doing their paperwork.
Are you kidding?
No.
A human sunscreen.
Human sunscreen.
Oh my god.
I mean, surely that's not true.
I've heard a worse story than that.
Okay.
Go on, Joey.
They have to remain nameless because it's quite criminal.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a story that a very well-known film director had a very bad coke habit and got wind that the police...
that really does narrow it down.
The police knew about it and were going to come and raid the office.
Yeah.
So he handed all of his drugs, which was quite a lot, to the runner and made him go somewhere else on the lot.
So he became a true runner.
An
actual runner.
An actual drug runner for a movie director, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So basically, like, how much do you want this job? You're going to jail for 20 years if you get caught with this. Bye!
But that's awful. I mean, I don't think... Well, people shouldn't treat people like that. There's a whole hierarchy, isn't there?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And
but
terrible.
that's why Ricky Gervais set his sitcom Extras in that thing, because it's a very regimented... It's very army-like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Film set. You have certain people you're not allowed to talk to and stuff. So that's, extras are pretty much at the bottom. You have absolutely no responsibility beyond being a body that's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And so that's why, because that constant sort of, will I get a line? Will I raise through the ranks in any way?
Yeah.
No. That's the answer to that.
Just have to start a podcast instead.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't directed at you, Joey, but it can be.
Thank you.
We also ask, what's the last film you watched? So, over to you, Clara. What's the last film that you watched?
The last film I watched was last night. I tried to persuade my husband to watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
But you didn't watch that?
But I didn't, because P didn't want to watch it.
Okay.
Instead, we watched Fantastic Beasts.
The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Grindelwald, yeah.
Yeah.
That one. And I'm drinking Grimbergen.
Grimbergen beer.
So it leads you to drink, does it?
Yes, it does.
That bad?
No, it wasn't bad, actually. I quite enjoyed it.
It's
got a family film.
It's got a lot of stick, hasn't it?
Yeah.
From Potter fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Harry Potter. It's just like trying to live on that dream, which is not really working.
I like the scenes where they went back to Hogwarts, though.
Well, because you're Harry Potter. No, that was good, and I did like Jude Law.
I thought he was actually a good serviceable Dumbledore.
I thought he was a good Dumbledore too.
Yeah.
Kind eyes, Jude Law.
Okay.
Just like Dumbledore.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, some of the casting really irritated me.
Johnny Depp.
But there was a lot of stick for Johnny Depp, wasn't there? Yeah.
Mm.
But actually, they cast the guy that they were after.
Credence.
And then Johnny Depp's helper. They look exactly the same. So it took me about half the film to realise
that those were two different people.
They were two different people.
Really?
It's like, why are they looking for this person when he's right there?
Yeah.
And then it turns out they weren't.
So what you're telling is the reason you didn't enjoy it is because you're incredibly slow.
No, I got it. I got it in the end.
Did you like the film though?
I thought it was entertaining as a family film.
The problem is, so I've seen it as well. They've made 5. They're making 5 films of these Fantastic Beasts.
5.
5, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
But it feels like this is a story hasn't happened. It's all build up.
Yeah.
It's all build up to a further story, and they've forgotten to make a clean standalone narrative.
I feel like the second Pirates of the Caribbean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or any of the Pirate Caribbean movies apart from the first one.
Yeah.
The fact that a franchise needs to earn the ability to have a franchise first.
Yes.
Yeah.
The movies will need to still... They can interlock, but they still need to be able to... I genuinely think they need to be standalone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, make them into a mini-series.
Yeah.
You
need a certain amount of closure, usually at the end of the middle one, because that's the bit that they neglect to address, isn't it? It's just like, oh, it'll be fine, we'll just solve it all in the third one.
I mean, I did enjoy bits of it.
I did think it was quite clever how they did set up some of the characters for the Harry Potter era, like the snake woman in Nigiri. Nigini or whatever.
Nigiri is a type of sushi.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes I get my words all squiggly wigglies.
Very good.
Thank you. You know,
I'm a bit annoyed that your West Country accent is better than mine.
Yeah, yours was pretty awful. I mean, you can't have it all, can you? Yeah, there were some clever ties, I think. Sure. And I like Eddie Redmayne.
Okay. I'm glad you liked it.
He's a beaut.
Yeah.
So, Luke, what's the last film you watched?
So I was in a bad mood after work. I had a tough day. So I watched Mary Poppins Returns.
No, I haven't watched that yet.
Yes, I did.
I want to see that. I'm annoyed that I missed it at the cinema.
Yeah, me too.
Because it seems like a very cinematic thing.
Yes.
Very big.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
Where did you see it?
I rented it. I think it gets Mary Poppins right. Like, it's different. So Emily Blunt's Mary Poppins is different from Julie Andrews' Mary Poppins. But she still feels like Poppins. And it's just a really sweet story. Made me cry. It's great.
Did it?
Yeah.
You're not much of a crier.
No, I am now. Like, as soon as I hit 30...
Did someone get gunged?
Very good, Joey.
Yeah, all right. No, it's really good. I really like some of the songs as well. Yeah, no, it's a very good film. Disney do this quite well. They try and explore some quite adult issues in a way that's accessible to children that can start conversations. So things like, when Mary Poppins comes back to help the Banks, the Banks children are now grown up and the son has had children of his own, but the mum's her wife has died, so the mum has died, and obviously they're on their own, and struggling financially, and it brings up those questions about grief and stuff like that. It's in a really way that's accessible to children.
Yeah.
So it does very well dealing with very adult issues in a kid friendly way. It's really good. Watch it.
Cool. Yeah, I will watch it.
Yeah, very good. Shall we go watch the movie?
Yes.
What's more with feeling, Joey?
Yes.
Yeah, you're not in a broken down car now, Joey. Just enjoy yourself.
Okay.
Right, let's go. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Please don't eat me.
You think because I'm a giant that I'm a man gobbling cannibal?
And we're back. So, how was that?
It's better than I remember, actually.
Okay.
Obviously, I thought it wasn't quite engaging enough the first time, because that's why I turned it off.
And the fact that you'd only watched 40 minutes of it.
Yes. But no, it is quite good.
Yeah. There were moments of it where I kind of switched off.
Yeah.
Okay.
The dream sequence.
Metaphorically.
Though, literally.
Literally switched off and then left. I didn't really like it.
Really?
No.
Can you articulate why?
Nope. And that's the end of the episode. I found it very slow.
Right.
There were some bits in it I liked, but overall, I just found it really dragged and ended up getting bored in a lot of it. And it only really picked up in the end sequences when they went to Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
And then
the bit before that when they... Or is it... it must be after, because the Queen has all of her helicopters and stuff, chase the big giants down at the end. It starts getting a bit more exciting.
It gets a bit more exciting there.
Yeah,
but until then, there's no real narrative thread about where the whole plot's going for the bulk of the movie.
Shall we do a little synopsis, because we haven't really done that yet?
That's very true.
Yeah.
The BFG is, as we know, a Roald Dahl story. We start with an orphan called Sophie spots the BFG, who goes around his job at night time giving dreams to people in London. He's a giant, but manages to hide himself very well. she gets kidnapped by him because she sees him, and
gets taken to Giant Country, which is a place of threat, isn't it? Because there's bigger giants. It turns out
there's bigger boys.
It turns out the BFG is actually quite little in Giant Country.
Yeah.
Half-sized, I would say.
Yeah. The bigger giants like eating human beings, is what they call
human beings, little children, and they get taken.
Yeah.
And they come up with a plan together to stop them.
Stop the bigger giants.
Stop the bigger boys from being bullies and eating children.
Yeah.
Which sounds a lot darker than it actually comes across.
Yeah.
There were quite dark elements in it, I think.
There were okay, so
there's very real moments of like Sophie really could die. She nearly gets eaten. She nearly gets chopped up.
I know, but that's maybe one of my problems with this is the fact that I never worried for Sophie's well-being.
Yeah.
And I never really, although you're right, the darkest element in the whole thing for me was the knowledge that the BFG looked after or was friends with another little boy beforehand.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's implied that he got eaten.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's dark.
Yeah.
But all the other stuff, but I never really got a threat from the big giants. Although I didn't find they were that threatening at all. I never worried for Sophie's safety really.
Yeah.
So there was no tension in the movie.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the problem I have with it, and I feel this actually with Roald Dahl books looking back.
Sure.
Do you remember when we did the Terminal episode and I talked about us having a certain amount of fatigue because we're all in the same area?
Yes.
Now, what's weird about Roald Dahl books is maybe it's because it is all mixed up in this whole sort of dreamlike landscape, and Sophie is abducted from the orphanage so early on in the story.
Yeah.
We don't actually get to know her real world.
Yes.
Yes, she tells us, oh, it's a bit bad being there, I don't particularly like it.
Yeah.
We don't see the head mistress of the orphanage sort of be authoritative in any way towards her or anything like that. We're just like, oh, we just have to take her word for it.
Yeah.
Gets abducted really quickly. And then the bit, which was the bit that I stopped watching at, was the first time she's taken to his sort of, what would you call it, his house, his lair.
Yeah.
Where he's...
His dungeon.
His dungeon, where he's doing his cooking and stuff. Just sort of falls into the trap of telling, not showing. Yeah. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where there's just a lot of explaining, exposition.
Yeah.
But the bit I was going to sort of mention about that I don't particularly like about the books is maybe it's intentional or maybe it's just a flaw of his writing. I never quite know my time of day and things like that in a Roald Dahl. Does Charlie and the Chocolate Factory happen in one day? Does all of that stuff in that factory happen in one day? Because at no point is the day broken up with, right, you must be hungry now because it's midday.
So your problem with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is there's no loo breaks or anything like that?
Basically, yes, because...
Okay.
Have you seen 24? How do they do that?
Because I would use maybe something like Harry Potter as the total opposite of that, where you almost get to know Harry's timetable.
Yes.
You know what lessons he should be in.
Yeah.
If he's missing them by going off on some other adventure, and you're like, oh, he is going to be in trouble because he's missing that lesson.
Yeah.
Where he's going to need that piece of information to help him solve the thing at the end.
Sure.
You don't get that bigger picture with Roald Dahl books and stuff. You're like, you get a sort of fatigue. Like, I want to know, like, at no point does anyone need a loo break, or does anyone need a certain amount of food, like, or a time of day, or it's getting dark now, so I'm getting tired. There's no sense of anyone getting sort of tired.
Mm-hmm.
When it's nothing but sort of talking just between the BFG and Sophie,
and
you don't know quite where you are, that adds to this whole sort of like, what's going on?
Okay. I totally agree with that, actually. Totally. But I also think that there was no real character, like you say, there was no character development really of Sophie at all. She was always a constant. You didn't really know who she was.
That's true.
Until, like, she was always... It would have been good to see her conditions up front, where she was staying, how bad it was.
Yeah.
But you never really saw that. You're right. But in the same time, and I think that was down to casting as well. I think she was quite annoying.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Sorry, Ruby, if you're listening.
Dare I say it?
Just picking on an 11-year-old.
I know.
Yeah, you're the mean giant in this
She's
situation.
not 11 now.
she's 14 and she can take it. Yeah, sure. Famously, got a lot of self-worth at that age.
Yeah. Dare I say it? All contender for the worst child performance in a Spielberg movie?
Just trying to think.
That's so mean, Joey.
Yes. Yeah.
It was quite unbelievable.
Some of the reviews, however, are praised her performance in it.
I think there were moments where she was good. But then also, she's pretty much acting to nothing. If you think about it.
She has a very difficult job.
Yes. Because she's basically in a studio.
I'd argue Lex and... If they still had Mark Rylance there, I'd argue Lex and Tim from Jurassic Park had less to work with.
But they were a bit older as well.
Okay.
But it's not even necessarily like... It's the way she delivers lines and stuff, which adds to this whole sort of, sense that there is no genuine threat. I mean, she's very kind of casual and very sort of like authoritative, isn't she? She's sort of like, I told you it was like this.
I think you're absolutely right.
It comes across like she's reading a line rather than actually delivering it as a person.
She's overacting.
Yeah, it's almost like a theatre. It's almost like a
it's a theatre. It's a stage school type of acting.
Yes, yeah.
It would suit the stage production. I think she'd be quite good, but it just doesn't hold up on film.
I think you're right that she it would have made her character better if we'd seen, some of the disciplinarian action of the orphanage, and you can tell she's resourceful and she's brave, but if you actually give her some stuff in the real world to be brave against, I think it would magnify the bravery that she shows in the giant world.
It would also help with the logic of the thing, because it's like, if the orphanage was really terrible and we saw that, we're like, oh, well, thank God she's being kidnapped and taken to giant country.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, there's a chance she'll get eaten by a bigger giant, but at least she's out of the orphanage.
Yeah,
there's no sense of that.
No, yeah.
Because I still find myself getting towards the end and being a little bit like, remind me again why the BFG took her away from the orphanage to put her in this threatening
there was no threat.
Yeah.
Well, there was a bigger threat there.
Yeah,
this is what I don't... Yeah, you're right. I just didn't...
You've put her in more danger, and yet you're trying to come across as like a lovable uncle, like, oh, I did this for you. Yeah. Like, you realise where you're from is really dangerous.
We talked about her as a sort of character, but we talked about the same sort of tropes with Tintin, in the fact that sometimes an author will make their protagonist a blank slate.
Yes.
In order so you can put yourself in their position. You can imagine yourself going through those adventures. And I think that's probably what they've tried to do. But I think they've just made her quite a bit boring. And just
she
a bit
boring.
blank.
And like Clara said, there's no development there.
With no arc, yeah.
I remember the original cartoon being quite good for that, actually. Like, Sophie in the... animated one is really quite shy and stuff, and I remember laughing that she gets really embarrassed when she has to do a little whiz pop and stuff like that because she drinks some of the juice.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny and endearing.
Yes.
Whereas this character, this version of Sophie, is so ballsy she wouldn't care if she did let one go. Little things like that.
Yeah. One of the you mentioned like fatigue that you got because of time of day.
And the length of scenes and stuff. Because they're just stood talking for quite a lot.
I also think it's the environment that they're in as well. When essentially a whole first 2/3, apart from the first 10 minutes, are set in a magical land, and you're meant to be. They've just gone all out on the visual effects in order to make it look beautiful, stunning, otherworldly.
Yeah.
But when you're in that environment and every scene is like, oh, look at these lights. And then you go to another thing and say, oh, there's different types of lights, and you're all meant to be visually stunning. You need some bits in the real world to offset that. If everything's magical, nothing is.
Yeah.
And that's what made that's why all the magical stuff for me just got a bit tedious.
Yeah. When fantasy works well, you need to, we talked about this before, establishing the rules of the world. So we talked about when we were doing Minority Report, that it works really well, that they give across so much information in the first 10 minutes because it's like a little version of the bigger movie that we're going to see. So you set up all the rules about the pre-crime and all this stuff. Yeah. And Harry Potter is just really, really good at like saying, oh, if you put this potion with this potion at this time, then this result happens, you know?
Yeah.
So that's tension building in itself, because you, like we always talk about with tension and suspense.
Yeah.
You set the whole thing up first, and then that either happens or there's a delay or something happening drawing that out.
What sort of technique is that?
Godardian.
Okay,
Apparently, I say Hitchcockian like way too much.
That's your drinking game cue.
Yeah.
I've listened to the Jaws episode. I know exactly what you're talking about.
He doesn't stop. Anything else that any initial impressions from you, Clara?
I was quite impressed.
You were a bit more positive than I was.
I was I feel like there are some positives with the film. I feel like I think technically how he achieved what he achieved was pretty impressive. They had to build up most of the set 4 times as big to be giant size, have human sized things, and then for the even bigger giants have them half size. So it was just amazing in terms of that technical feat.
It's a lot of money in production and
so much
and
money
design.
I was kind of annoyed that they had built pretty much everything in a studio. Like the orphanage and
the London Street
and the London Street.
Why
would they do that? I don't understand.
Because they can.
Well, I guess they've just got loads of money. They can just build it.
But that's what adds to this whole sort of. It doesn't
set
feel
it in the
quite,
real
yeah, it
world.
doesn't feel quite real.
Yeah.
It feels very stagey. And then little things like, you're in central London. Why are there no buses or why has no one seen the BFG? Does Spielberg not know how much traffic is in London?
It's true. Yeah.
There was
are
a lot
people on
of
the street
Americanism
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought that his take on London was very much an American take on what London should be
you go
like.
in. So the first thing you hear is an Irish jig in a pub. It's like, is it an O'Neill's or something? Why is that? Yeah. Why is that music?
But even
playing?
with the Queen and that whole scenario,
Yeah.
It was an American.
It's an American take on it.
Take on what?
Which is interesting because this has come after this very recent. In the last couple of movies, he's had War Horse, which is a very British film, which feels very British, but being made by an American. But this feels very American, doesn't it?
Yeah, we praised War Horse for saying he's captured
Britishness very well.
Maybe a little bit over the top, but it suits it. Whereas this one, is maybe a step beyond that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's knowingly a little bit beyond, because I saw a little behind the scenes documentary, and Penelope Wilton is talking about playing the Queen, and she's like, well, she's a slightly exaggerated version of our Queen.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole point of the fact that it can get away with being stagey. I don't have as much of a problem with that because it's so heightened, because it's about a giant, who delivers dreams to people. It's meant to be unrealistic and it's meant to be magical. But those scenes that they managed to... one of the things I did like is that those scenes they managed to achieve on the London streets where the BFG hides from the one punter who's on the street at 2:00 in the morning.
Why doesn't he just kidnap him too?
Exactly. The way he hides from people is quite. I did quite like that.
Yeah.
It's quite imaginative.
His giant cloak.
There is some really funny bits in the film, some really really small funny bits.
Are there?
Yeah. There's a bit in the orphanage with the cat. I love cats, obviously.
Okay.
Where she's walking with her cloak, and I didn't notice it the first time I watched the movie, but the ginger cat follows her everywhere, and there's a bit where she goes back to bed, and the cat is sitting on the bed sheet and is being dragged along by the.
Oh yes. Yeah,
it's just it just made me chuckle. It's just little bits of comical moments where it just adds a funny element.
Yeah.
The whiz popper scene is my favourite.
Yeah.
With the dogs, the corgis going out.
The whiz popping is good, but there is a joke which is in the cartoon, which is really funny, which I was really disappointed wasn't in this movie, which is where BFG says something like, "Oh, I don't like the bagpipes. I likes whiz popping." And then he does his whole thing, farts all over the palace basically. Yeah. And then the Queen just goes, "On the whole, I prefer the bagpipes." It's like, oh, they didn't get that joke in. That was the best joke from the cartoon.
The corgis were good, and yes, there were some good little moments, but
I mean, ultimately, the comedy in this film comes down to the lowest base of humour, isn't it? It's fart jokes and people falling over and being kicked in the balls.
Yeah, the drunk people at the beginning were quite funny too.
Were they?
Where they danced in the puddle.
Okay.
But hey,
Glad you enjoyed that.
as I say, like I liked it for the first maybe like half an hour. Then when it got to like the dream sequence, I just completely switched off.
Yeah.
I had I didn't care. I actually didn't care what he did.
Because that's meant to be I think Spielberg's intention was that to be the most visually arresting. It's meant to be, that's the sense of wonder that he tries to imbue into all of his films.
Yeah, it didn't work.
But yeah, I got bored as well.
It is very nice looking, all that stuff with that
it's beautiful,
with that tree, and it all kind of looks very Northern Lights-ish, doesn't it? Like that looks really cool as an image, but it's a little bit like you need to know some rules of the world and stuff. It can't be that floaty, you know?
Yeah.
It can't be that generic. Oh, it's just a magical world somewhere.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
I know. I know what you mean. Because you're right. If you took an image of that, a screenshot of that, you're like, oh, that's a beautiful animated scene.
Yeah.
But you need to have rules.
Yeah, you do, and there's not enough of them. It feels like it's
I
not
really like rules,
enough.
Joey.
Yeah, but it's key. Isn't it? It's part of the whole setup. Like Lord of the Rings is just basically all it is a bunch of rules.
Yeah. Conversely to sort of Sophie, the thing I thought that did work was Mark Rylance as the BFG.
I mean, I agree.
I thought he brought such authenticity to that. And also, someone who has like gobbledygook to speak a lot of the time. He made it seem very naturalistic.
Yeah,
you could understand what he was saying the entire time, and there was a really nice cadence and flow to everything that he was saying.
Yeah, that
worked really, really well.
Yeah, but maybe because obviously, he's a very famous theatre actor.
Yeah,
perhaps Spielberg said to Ruby or something, we're almost in Theatreland or something, and that's why her performance is so big or whatever. But somehow Mark Rylance can get away with it because of the exaggerated... The whole character is exaggerated, isn't it? From the way he looks to the size of his ears and stuff.
So that's exaggerated, but the performance isn't.
Whereas Sophie needs a much more grounding because she looks just like us.
They say that though, but how much did they can do anything with animation?
No, but you can see Mark Rylance's face.
True.
Yeah, in the BFG, and when they do the motion capture, he's got dots all over his face.
Yeah.
In order to, his eyebrow movements, his cheek movement, they're all what he's actually performing, and you can see. And I think if it was entirely animated, you wouldn't get the subtlety that Mark Rylance gives to the performance.
I totally agree with you. There's also, you don't know how much they're not telling you, as in did they accentuate any of his performances?
I'm sure they did, but the performance is still there.
Yeah, I think they warmed his eyes. Definitely, his eyes were so warm.
Okay, sure.
Don't you agree, Joey?
Yeah. You're talking about adding an extra little twinkle, a little extra white dot. Yeah,
to his eyes, and
no, it definitely did.
Yeah,
to make them look extra watery and sort of
and
white dog manish.
His smile was
but also he was so convincing in the role, and to be convincing as a character who speaks like a West Country Russell Brand is very, very difficult.
My bookie work?
My bookie work? That's all I was thinking.
It's going to be the BFG in the next Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
Going to look at Jason Segel's full frontal. You know what?
It's a bit wibbly wobbly.
A bit tiny tiny. Some of the images and things that were happening in the movie reminded me a bit of Hook.
I think the fact it's very set based.
That's true.
Was also very hooky.
Yes, the Fizz Wizard. Particularly with the Fizz Wizard, the little.
What's the Fizz Wizard?
The little glowing light.
Oh, the dream things.
Particularly the yellow one.
Yeah.
Very much like Tinkerbell.
Yeah, definitely.
When she chases it around and.
There's been a constant theme in Spielberg movies of the way he's treated some of his female characters that we've mentioned in previous movies, and it happened again in this one.
Yeah.
So, Clara, we've specifically talked about in that Jurassic Park. It's
It's Lex that gets sneezed
Lex
on.
who gets sneezed on. It's Ellie who gets her hand full of dung. You know, it's all the female characters in Indiana Jones who ever get the bugs on them, or rats, or snakes.
Oh yeah.
You know, and not all the male characters get away scot-free. And in this one, we have a poor little 11-year-old girl covered in gunge from snozcumbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit more
It's happened
innocent.
again. But again, another movie where the blokes in it have got away
Yeah.
To be honest,
relatively gunge-free.
but he was basing it on a book though, so he only had 2 characters to choose from.
It's true. I'm not entirely criticising him for this one. But it's happened.
I also liked that sense of scale that you mentioned in the intro. There were times where, I was like, if I saw that at the cinema and I was a little kid, I would think, wow, that is quite cool. There was one particular shot I liked near the end where Sophie stood in the middle where all the big giants are sleeping.
Yeah.
There's one shot where, you just get a sense of really little Sophie and the real big baddie's eyes open.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
just
scary.
behind her. It's like, that would be intimidating on the big screen.
And I do like I really like the shot in the orphanage of BFG's hand coming to pick up and plucking Sophie from her bed.
Yeah, that was on the trailer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Trailer for the movie.
Yeah. And they do, the scale is quite, you mentioned the cat scene.
Yeah.
It's quite good that they've established like Sophie being big next to the tiny little cat who gets pulled around, and then you get Sophie next to the BFG who's much bigger,
that's true.
and then you have the BFG and the other bigger boys. It's just quite nice and complete. You know what I mean?
That must be what the cat's purpose
Exactly.
was, because the cat is literally
It does nothing else.
does nothing. Like it adds nothing.
You wanted
other
more
than
cat.
that. I love cats.
I know. What did you... So, I mentioned at the beginning about the tension, then we moved on a little bit. Do you guys... You weren't seeming to agree with me. Do you think this film has tension in it? Do you think that's one of the problems of it?
No, it doesn't have tension in it.
No, okay.
No.
Because there's no clear aims. Like, I found myself getting towards the end and I was still sort of asking the question, like... Usually, you should ask yourself... If you want to know the plot, you just ask yourself the question, like, what does the main character want? Or what do they want to achieve?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It wasn't like Sophie desperately wanted to leave Giant Country.
No.
Or
It was weird.
or
It's
anything.
like,
I didn't quite know what the point of anything was.
firstly, she wanted to go home to the orphanage. Then she wanted to stay, and then she wanted to
And then she was fine with
Live with the
leaving.
Queen.
leaving. I just don't get it.
Yeah. But the giants themselves, they should be antagonistic. They should be scary, and they should be the things that the kids are coming out of the cinema going, that was terrifying.
Yeah.
But they are bumbling idiots, aren't they?
In the original cartoon, they were really scary looking,
Sure.
like really ugly looking, and just big and intimidating. Whereas this, they just seem like big and stupid.
They were
a bit, just a bit slow.
Yeah.
Did you know who played the main giant?
Jermaine
from Fight the Conchords.
on!
Really?
Yeah. Jermaine, Fleshlamp-Peter, your friend who you've
Hello.
met.
I have met him.
Have you?
Yes.
How did that go?
I'll show you a picture because it's.
Can you post that picture of Twitter?
No, how did it go?
Well.
Were you really awkward?
Yeah, I was my normal, natural awkward self.
Oh dear.
No, Joey got a photo, and the photo he's not very good at taking a selfie, Joey. So we'll post the photo on Twitter.
Yeah, basically it focused behind Jermaine and I, but luckily he's got such a distinctive face with big square glasses that you can see it's him, and a really out of focus picture of me. Yeah.
Oh,
so he played the giant called Fleshlamp-Peter.
Big one.
The big
Yeah,
main
the
giant.
big main giant. There was another one played by Bill Hader.
He wasn't credited very much. Bill Hader's credited much more. I don't
Yeah, but
really
he
remember
was-
seeing Jermaine's name in there.
No, I think he was Blood Bottler or Bone Cruncher, one of the two.
I see.
The other names, which I wrote down, Gizzard Gulper, Child Chewer, yes, all very scary, Maid Masher, and then Man Hugger. Slightly less scary.
If you were a giant Joey, that's what you would be.
Man Hugger. And then there was Martin as well. He didn't get much of a credit.
Martin?
No, I'm kidding.
My name's Martin and I'm heading north.
Yeah,
you saying that
too, yeah.
We thought that might be the third Fievel Goes West. Martin Goes North.
I do like Martin as a comedy name. It's quite good. Do you think this film is better if you already know the story of the BFG? Do you think it will play well to someone like me who's the uninitiated? Or do you think you need that nostalgia?
It might be slightly better if you already know the story.
Okay.
Or if you've read the book.
Yeah.
But then also you're setting yourself up for a bigger fall if you love the book and then you don't like the film, aren't you? It's better off not reading the book and just going with it. But
the book is pretty sort of, sacred, isn't it? There's a lot of people, most people love Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
But
I just felt I was a bit of a disadvantage because I didn't have that emotional connection from the very start of these characters.
Yeah.
I just feel like some books shouldn't be made into films.
You think this one would be fit into that category?
I think Roald Dahl in general, almost his entire collection, don't really work very well.
Not Matilda.
But why?
Well, Matilda is quite good, actually. That's true.
But
Matilda,
it's less magical. It's set in the real world.
Yeah.
It's
more established in the
Yeah.
Do you think that's the reason why? Because there's something more palatable about it.
Relatable.
Because the fantasy works much better in your own imagination.
And also, Matilda has a massive character arc there with issues with her family, issues at school, and she's dealing with this power that she doesn't know how to control.
She is an underdog, isn't she? And she has realistic adversity to triumph over. She had everyone relates to Mrs. Trunchbull, some sort of imposing, terrifying teacher,
Yeah.
One question I had to ask: did you think the CG mixed with the live action well? Because we've talked a little bit on the podcast about the Uncanny Valley, haven't we?
Yes.
About
I made a note about the Uncanny Valley. Yeah.
Yeah. About when CG, whether things work more digitally or not.
Yeah.
But obviously, this is a film that they've made a conscious decision to wait to make, in order for the technology to be there to make it.
Yeah.
But how did you feel it integrated?
I'm yet to have my personal feeling about this Uncanny Valley stuff broken, which is it always works better when everything is complete. So like you can get into a complete Pixar movie because there's no human characters as we literally know them on there. Obviously the voices, etc., and their behaviours and stuff are based on humans or whatever. But it's a very complete world. The humans in it, Boo, the little girl in Monsters Inc., fits into the world with the monsters as well. Yeah. But there is just a clash. There is a contradiction that happens with having a real Sophie next to a CGI BFG.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think of... Basically, it screams to me that, this is a special effect. She's been cut out and pasted into the scene. I just can't get beyond it.
I mean, that might be coming from your kind of background.
Yeah, that's true.
But I felt that as well.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you in the way that you could see, like, every scene I was like, oh, how did they do that? Oh, how did they do that? So to me, yes, it did scream like...
if you're looking...
For now, I think it was very good.
I
feel like in 10 years' time, could look very dated.
And that's the thing, and that's when you're trying to make a timeless movie, which, Spielberg does try to, things that will hold up in 10, 20, 30 years' time. It's a risky thing to try and integrate two different technologies that will age, which as things will improve.
Yeah.
And I know you were thinking, oh, how do they do that? How do they do that? I wasn't thinking, oh, how do they do that? I was like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah,
really,
so that's what I was thinking.
I just always try and pick apart how they do.
Yeah.
But anything that when you just saw the BFG, I thought that's amazing. Yeah,
the BFG and the bigger giants. Yeah. If that was just a scene like that and Sophie's gone off and hit them,
incredible.
Then you can fit into that. Yeah.
And some of the like the vistas of Giant Country and like you said the Dream Tree as well. Like that's all absolutely beautiful. But then you integrate Sophie in there, and when Sophie is just interacting with like giant objects that are twice her size, that's cool as well. But then you pan out and you see the whole scenario and the combination. And for me, there's something's quite not quite there, and it takes me out of a movie.
Yeah, like when she's sitting on his shoulder and he's walking, and you get the close up of her and then her.
Yeah, or he carries her around on a tray or the frying pan and things like that. Or tosses her in the frying pan.
I did like the tray of the sign. of the
Yeah, it's a
Matlock
road sign.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
the
the
Matlock road
A36
sign.
to Matlock, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
It's just like that's a really odd sign
It's
to be in a Spielberg
It's got
movie.
leads at the top and
Yeah.
stuff, hasn't
I
it?
love that.
I tried
That's
to.
a nice touch.
It was the A38 to Mansfield. yeah. I just tried to look up. It was rolled off from Mansfield or something like that.
I have no idea.
Well, yeah, I thought it was like an Easter egg or something like that, but I know.
That
If
was
anyone
just-
knows anything that's happened in Mansfield, let me know.
Yeah, why that
Why
sign?
why was that sign there? That would be
Yeah.
really good.
It's not there anymore, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love it if there's a hole out of a road sign somewhere. That's like the ultimate niche reference to something, isn't it?
Yeah. That'd be
Perfect.
awesome.
We've got to go to Mansfield, guys. Pack your bags.
Did you notice the little Easter egg from a very early Spielberg movie in this?
No.
Now I'm going to take a punt on this
Go for it.
because I've watched the little behind-the-scenes documentary and stuff, and I know that they had one on set. Was there an E.T. teddy bear?
That's not. I didn't notice that, but I think I've watched the same documentary on there.
Yeah.
I've
So-
seen it too.
That is pertinent because the person who wrote this, Melissa Matheson,
Wrote E.T.
also wrote E.T.
Yes.
Just
Just to hark back to what you were literally just talking about the sort of like, will this technology date a timeless movie?
yeah,
We think about like Spielberg's career in general. He's always taken that risk
yes, true.
because he knew even at the time, like, oh my god, are people going to buy this rubber shark as
Yeah.
a threatening thing?
Yeah, okay, people are going to fall in love with
Yeah.
E.T.
E.T.,
Yeah.
which is a very mechanical, particularly the way he moves his hand sometimes,
Yes.
looks very cable-ish.
Yeah,
It's like, well, it's the risk he's always taken.
yeah,
It's just that now, because it's CGI, maybe CGI just dates more than
Maybe.
than physical cables and wires and
yeah.
But no, can you imagine an animatronic BFG? Just wouldn't work.
Yeah, this is a audio form, but you didn't see Clara do a robot impression there.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
It was a little bit like Jermaine, actually, from Flight of the Conchords. The humans are dead.
Yeah.
Dear Stone for your chair. You didn't answer my question. Did you notice the little reference? Did you notice the name of the bookshop in the street?
Was there a scene in a
Firelight
bookshop?
Oh, really?
So Firelight was Steven Spielberg's first ever short sci-fi film he made when he was a teenager. Yeah, so it's Firelight Bookshop.
Have you watched that? The Firelight?
No, I don't think
Have
I
you?
have.
No.
Oh, we should watch that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting fact, though.
Thank you very much.
Another Spielberg-y trope, if you like, because we've mentioned it before, particularly in Herc and things, and Indiana Jones, use of shadows.
Yes.
Big use of shadows as a storytelling device.
Yes. What sort of examples were you thinking of for that?
In the first few episodes, I noticed that it was doing it the same way Disney does, which is you use a shadow to show violence or something that's too scary.
Yeah.
You do it somehow. It's not as scary if you see it in a silhouette or a shadow.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's the whole setup, isn't it, of what BFG actually looks like? Because it's probably 20 minutes into the movie before we actually see a full his face in a close up with light actually hitting it. Because the rest of the time it's in shadow.
Yeah.
And things. So so that whole sort of like, oh, what was that in the street in the London street as it's a shadow just moved across the building or whatever.
Yeah. The way they lit the whole, I thought you were getting onto more like the sort of the light design and the cinematography, because the orphanage at the beginning where you saw every window is bathed in moonlight and lights up.
Yes.
Irrelevant of wherever you are in the house, you've got moonlight coming straight through the windows.
Yeah.
Shafts of light. Spielberg's always done lots of shafts of light.
Exactly. And I probably wouldn't have picked that up as something that annoyed me until you mentioned it on the Warhorse episode about what Janusz Kaminski does with
backlighting.
Backlighting. But again, this film very much feels of that aesthetic.
Yeah.
You can very much tell it's those two working together as always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the reveal of the BFG?
It's a little bit underwhelming.
So you hear a noise in the street. She's at the window, and you hear a noise in the street, but dustbins being knocked over.
Yeah.
And so she looks harder, and then she sees a hand reach round and pick up the dustbin.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and then you see a glimpse of his face, don't you, around the corner.
Face. But I don't know whether that really worked.
For me, I think
you wanted a fear of this person, of this giant.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I didn't feel that.
Yeah, it set it up as a comical character almost straight away by picking up the bin and stuff. It's like,
and then you go to the hand, which is meant to be threatening.
Oh, he's immediately friendly or nice because he's picking up some dustbins.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just like you needed her to be scared.
You know, he's stroking a cat as well. You know, he's all nice and friendly.
You know, I wouldn't.
He's giving some change to a beggar. You know.
Yeah.
What a good guy.
Oh, what a guy.
Maybe that's why she wasn't relatable, because at no point did she really seem scared, did she? She's really like, oh, might be a giant, let's run out to the balcony and have a look. But she
says, oh, don't get out of bed as she gets out of bed. Don't go to the curtain.
I think that was just terrible.
But you don't believe what she's saying.
Sorry,
you don't. No, you don't. I know.
Sorry again, Ruby.
Yeah. Did a great job. Don't give up.
I did also say that I thought like the ginger cat would also like if a cat didn't know what this big booming thing was walking around in the streets, it wouldn't run towards it. It would run the opposite direction and go
terrible cat acting.
Hide under a bed. It wouldn't run out to the balcony and have a look.
Yeah,
that bugs me.
Yeah, maybe there was just because they knew it was going to be a PG or something. They could only make it so scary. I don't know whether they were ruled by their audience or the audience they were trying to.
It's true. They might have been limited by that. They had to not include any darker elements particularly.
But for a time, Jaws was a PG.
Dark.
That's true, but that shouldn't have been a PG. we talked about that in Jaws. You know that should. What do you mean? Should you said you listened to the Jaws episode? We talk about that at length.
What do you mean?
Jaws was a PG.
What did I say?
You're like, really? Was it?
It was a while ago.
Okay.
I remember every word you said.
Thank you very much.
I like the fact that the BFG looked like. Do you guys remember The Storyteller by Jim Henson Company?
You've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looked almost exactly like him, actually. I'll post a picture.
No, I don't remember.
John Hurt, yeah. He's got a big nose, and then he's got his hair is really similar. Maybe
we should post a picture of this Storyteller because I don't actually quite know what. Are you finding it on your phone now?
Yeah.
All right, we'll tweet a picture out just in case you don't know what Joey's talking about.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
He looks
that does look familiar.
Really, yeah.
It looks just like him.
There you go.
There you go. You're absolutely right. There you go. The Storyteller did it first. When did The Storyteller come out?
90s?
That must have been stolen from the original Quentin Blake illustrations of the BFG.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It does look very similar.
Shall we talk about the bits I liked, which are the bits where he actually gets to Buckingham Palace and meets the Queen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when the actual story starts to.
It feels where like a
place.
lot of the things which are set up, and it's taken a long time to get set up.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 10.
Finally start paying off. So the whole thing about the whiz popping and the bubbles flowing down and stuff finally pays off.
Yeah, exactly.
As a joke, like, oh, that's why that was in there.
Yeah.
Was when we get to Buckingham Palace.
And you've got. I completely didn't realise that. So we got Penelope Wilton, you got Rebecca Hall, you got Rafe Spall, like all quite big actors nowadays, all doing these tiny little roles in this Spielberg movie. It's good.
Yeah.
I like the scene where he was where they provide the food. That's probably one of the funniest sequences.
Say so. Yeah.
In the whole thing, that's the one actually. The only bit I really laughed out loud, and the corgis, like you said,
the
whiz popping corgis. That was they did get propelled at quite. Beforehand I was just like, they're just going for farting jokes. It's not that funny, and then I was like, oh, actually, that is quite. That is quite funny.
Everyone wants to see a farting corgi.
And I just like trying to explain the amount of fart jokes you're going to do to Penelope Wilton. Imagine that conversation happening.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen, Penelope? National treasure.
Yeah.
Is you're going to fart incredibly loudly.
Yes.
It was good. I quite liked it.
Yeah. So apparently Steven Spielberg is a Downton Abbey fan because that's where he first saw Penelope Wilton.
Yeah.
So she'd be perfect to play the Queen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Sophie is named after Sophie Dahl.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Roald Dahl's granddaughter.
Yeah. Because apparently BFG was Roald Dahl's favourite, and he used to pretend to be the BFG. I've seen like a documentary where his daughter is talking about it. So he would actually pretend to go out. He'd leave a window open as the kids went to bed, and then he'd go outside, and then you'd hear like a sound as, you know, he's pretending to be the BFG, giving them nice dreams.
I mean, what a dad.
That's really sweet, isn't it? Yeah.
That's lovely. I mean, must have been a crazy
guy.
Yeah, I think he was quite eccentric, and he was very tall and thin himself, wasn't he? So
yes, he was like 6'6", 6'7", I think.
Whoa.
Yeah. But it was born out a bit of tragedy as well, because it was dedicated to his first daughter who died of measles, Olivia. The whole thing. And from that, I think the BFG had sort of a lot of personal significance for Roald Dahl. He said it was one of his favourites. And actually, the character of the BFG made an appearance in Danny, Champion of the World.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think the dad is reading a story to his kids, and in one of those storybooks, the BFG is a character. So yeah, he's appeared in other of Roald Dahl's books.
That's cool.
Any idea how you make the sound of a whiz popper? So I looked at a little bit about sound design.
I know this.
Yeah, go on.
They made a giant whoopee cushion.
Yeah, out of a giant weather balloon, didn't they?
And then they put like rockets inside or something like
that.
No,
they didn't put rockets inside. They combined it with sounds of rockets.
Rockets, yeah.
But they made loads of holes in the weather balloon and basically just pushed on it or jumped on it, and then in order to make a farting sound. Giant whoopee cushion.
I knew that one.
Which is a fun job.
Yeah. So apparently before they started filming, Steven Spielberg called up a couple of computer CGI people and said, right, we're just going to have a little play around.
Yeah.
Invited them to his summer house.
Yep.
Like we were talking before we came here.
Yeah.
Did you notice that he said summer house?
He did say, yeah, exactly. Yeah. To one of my third or fourth properties.
Yeah.
Ones where I don't mind other people coming in and
yeah. And you were saying like
when they say summer house, do you think it's just like a garage at the back of his garden?
Yeah, that is kind of what it looks like in this documentary.
Yeah, these poor kids. I can imagine there's like a garage at the back of his garden that these poor computer nerds are not allowed into the main house at all.
Yeah. And they've just got
you can sleep on the floor.
Sleep on the floor. There's a portaloo outside.
Exactly. And then they look out and there's just this massive mansion with a pool. It's like, don't come in.
Yeah. So apparently, yeah, Spielberg played around with that to try and get his head around the equipment before making the movie.
Apparently they were there for 3 months at their summer house.
Yeah.
You know, trying to do sort of computer rehearsals of what's possible and what shots he wanted to get and how to get them.
It's quite clever. I think a lot of movies do that nowadays, don't they? Pre-visualization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, like the new Jurassic Park film.
Yeah.
Did that.
Mm-hmm.
It is together basically an entire computer-generated story movie.
So it's like storyboarding, but
it's like storyboarding, but 3D.
Yeah. Okay.
So when they come to making the movie, they can just have that on stage, and they know exactly what they're doing, where the camera needs to be,
I don't know
what lens they need to be on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they do this, but basically, like once you have that, you could basically just keep building on top of that.
Anything else on the BFG that you want to talk about?
No, I think that's all my notes.
Cool. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Bigger Boat Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be interested to know your guys' opinions on the BFG as well. So you can always contact us on social media. So we're on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast, or we're also on Instagram at the Bigger Boat Podcast. If you actually want to email us to get in touch with us about the things we said, or ask us a specific question that you want us to address on the podcast, email us on
thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you could make sure, even if you've just had a listen to this episode, just subscribe to our podcast, leave us a 5-star review, and tell your friends about it. It helps us get our profile up if you like it on social media.
You have just reminded me, because as part of our Twitter campaign,
yes,
you run a sort of tournament, don't you?
Spielberg World Cup.
Yeah,
I have.
Spielberg World Cup. Do you remember in a round 1 match that people voted the BFG? It was against Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
And it was a 50-50 split.
What?
It was. However, that was when we didn't have very many followers, and I think 8 people voted in that. Now, I don't know...
Sorry, that's not funny.
Thank you, Clara. Everyone has to start somewhere. So I don't know what those 4 people were thinking. Those 4 people have now been unfollowed. And blocked from Twitter.
Were they children?
I don't know. Anonymous voting.
Okay.
So... I honestly have no idea. Now we've got more voters. Raiders of the Lost Ark has made it through to the semi-finals. So
Yeah, there was a little blip in.
There was a little blip. It's difficult to get, but it's found its feet. And yeah, so if you follow us on Twitter, you can vote in those. Like I said, the semi-finals will be coming up, where it's Raiders of the Lost Ark versus Jurassic Park.
It's gonna win.
And in the other semi-final, it's E.T. versus The Last Crusade. So 2 Indiana Jones films in the semi-finals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will see you next week. Okay. Bye.
Bye.